This podcast is brought to you in conjunction with hustro.com, a leading construction management software tool.
If someone's listening right now and they have a $200,000 business in revenue and they have 3 to 5 employees, they have way too many staff and they need to fire at least 3 of them right now. You don't need another employee until you're at least 300K. So you / an assistant, 3 to 500K should be more than good with the way AI, the way that virtual assistants work. Like there's lots of tools to where you should be able to get to 3 to 500K with you and some tools. And so even if you've got 3 to 5 employees in that example, most likely you're still the bottleneck, you're still the hero, everything runs through you, and a lot of people do this up until like 10 or 15 people on their team. Mm-hmm. And they just literally fall apart like themselves. They call it burnout, but they just don't know how to systemize and delegate.
Yeah.
So,
hi everybody, Gavin Kyle. I am the Gaffer back again. I've got Chaz Wolfe with me, and Chaz is a high-performing serial entrepreneur, investor, and a CEO on a mission to help leaders create and live what he calls the exceptional life. This guy has got a lot of irons in the fire. I was just having a pre-chat with him. Some amazing concepts and principles, and also insights into his own career, his own life, and also what he's doing with builders and construction owners and their families in a collective manner to try and get a more eco-friendly way of running a business so that you just don't become that person on the tools that has to roll up the sleeves every day and do the grind. How are you running your firm smartly? Have you got a sustainability in mind in terms of how this business can run without you? What does that look like for your families? I would imagine when we get in under the bonnet in terms of Chaz's initiative, and it's not just initiative, he's actually rolling that out as a model, and I'm very interested in that as well. But I'm also very interested in the guy because he's got a good few things going on. But I suppose let's just get into it. Chaz, welcome to I'm The Gaffer, and it's going to be fulfilled episode. So look, give us a quick background on yourself if you don't mind. Kick things
I
off.
appreciate the opportunity to be here, and if your audience is listening in, I hope to add some major value here today. I move fast, and we'll talk about a lot, I'm sure. So I am a serial entrepreneur, meaning I've started, purchased, sold multiple different businesses, multiple different industries. I've started to do that with my kids, and they're only 12 and 9, 6 and 3. Okay. I had a strategy session with my tax guy yesterday about how to transition even a few of my current businesses to my oldest daughter over the next couple of years. Oldest daughter they're 12 and 9.
So hold on a minute now, just before we go any further, and I get because I've got a health and safety business, and I'm going to get people ringing me going, "That's against the law. That's against the law."
Yeah,
you've got some child labor stuff going on there.
Yeah. I think that obviously laws are different in different countries and or cities and or municipalities. It's funny because the business that we purchased, the girls purchased back in October, is a vending machine business, and they were filling up one of their locations, and the owner of the establishment came out and was like, "Oh, what do we have here? Child labor laws being broken?" And said, "Actually, funny enough, when you own the business, there are no such laws. They're their owner." They're doing their thing. And so on top of that, we homeschool. And so it's actually kind of cool for us to be able to facilitate a lot of the quote unquote learnings inside of the business as, curriculum for their school. And so we're, as you can tell, I'm an extremely efficient individual and doubling up and letting the circles overlap of life. But it's super cool to be able to have experience in different industries. To your point there, we've been able to be successful in different industries. That doesn't mean that I haven't failed. I've failed quite a bit, actually. So I'm sure we could talk about that as well.
Look, we've all failed in life and in work. And I think anyone that says they haven't, is absolutely not being true to themselves.
All the wrong story.
Not being authentic. If you didn't fail, you wouldn't be here. So look, where do we start? Talk to me a little bit about your entrepreneurial appetite. Did that come from a family member? Was it something in the past? How did that come about?
Yeah, good question. I grew up single mom family, so a lot of my desire comes from just not having. And I think it's 85% of wealth is first generation, meaning we come from nothing, and so we decided to do it differently. And I'm sure that had a lot to do with it. Watching my mom work multiple jobs, really never making any excuses, always having an incredibly high standard for me in my performance at school or in sports or my character. I'm sure that played a big role into that. Later in life, I was able to meet my dad. He didn't even know I existed as I grew up, so kind of a crazy story. But he owns multiple businesses. So between my DNA and then the environment that I was raised, it was just destined to be, I guess. When I think about winning, I love it. I love to win. I love to win games. I love to win competitions. I love to win in business. I love to win with my family. And the game of business is one that you can just keep playing. There's just always another level to go to. So for me, it just seems like that's what I'll always do.
Do you think there is a genetic connection between an entrepreneur and the generations that went past?
Yeah, I think that the generations past, I mean, you're talking about two things, either the genes or the environment. And I think both apply, right? Genes meaning like, am I like my parents in the way of personality and, just how I'm naturally wired. We use a system called the predictive index with our clients to be able to help them understand how they're wired. And there's, I would say a handful of profiles that are more likely to be entrepreneurs, but I've seen entrepreneurs in every single category.
Yeah.
Really what it means to be an entrepreneur is really just someone who's willing to take risk, someone who's willing to kind of put it all on the line and bet on themselves. And that is usually followed with a certain like level of autonomy, certain goal orientedness, a certain risk factor. So you can kind of like predict that a little bit, but not necessarily. There's, some of the most successful people kind of on paper maybe should have never been. So yeah, the environment also plays a big role in that. Like I said, for me particularly, it was just always a high standard. So, it was like expected to win, not necessarily be perfect, but, I was expected to get good grades. If I was going to play ball, I was expected to show up to practice and give my best and perform at my highest level. Otherwise, why would we do it? Was always the thought,
And what about any brothers or sisters in the family? How did they get on? What did they do?
Yeah, my sister that I grew up with is a dental hygienist today, and which is great. She's first college educated gal in our family, which is funny because like I'm a huge proponent of not college at all. In fact, I think it's a pretty big scam. But I'm super proud of her in breaking that because, like my wife, becoming a dental hygienist requires a degree, and she makes more money doing that than she would doing a lot of other things. So super proud of her. She's invested in several of our projects with me and all kinds of cool stuff. And so, different personality, definitely, but the same level of, standard of wanting to win, in life, I think, even though she's way more introverted, way less, wanting to be connected to people, so.
Yeah, but it's interesting, isn't it? Like you have people who want to know the known knowns. And then you have the people who go, well, I don't really know, but if I don't try, I'll never find out. It's kind of, there's two different personality traits there, isn't it? It's kind of like,
oh, for sure. For sure. That second person, tends to ask, why, like, why does this exist? Why does it happen like this? Why not me? And those questions tend to buck against a system. They buck against rules. They buck against, a box, that society tends to put us in, which is exactly why, the sentiments that I've shared around college don't, it's not maybe mainstream, but when you really break it down, most successful entrepreneurs don't have a degree. I definitely don't. And when you break down even the value that a degree brings, in my experience, 8 out of 10 college educated people go, I don't really use it. Now I can get you actual stats, and the stats are like north of 65% of people within their first year and 10 years later do not use their degree. Not just the type of degree. They do not use their degree at all. In fact, they have a job that doesn't require one. And so, we can get in, but we don't have to get into that deep. I mean, but the point there being is that when you challenge things, when you challenge the system, when you ask questions, when you're always asking like, well, I wonder if this could be done better, that's how an entrepreneur thinks.
Yeah, that's a deep conversation. I don't know. I think that's another podcast. I was
It
gonna
probably
respond
is.
to that. I was gonna go, yeah, I wouldn't mind going for that. Like,
My audience on Facebook is like, yeah, it's right. College is a scam. Da, 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 a bunch of contractors and trades
yeah,
guys, and then I hop over to my audience on LinkedIn. I think LinkedIn in general is just buttoned up. Everybody's got a blazer on over there.
yeah,
They're still feeling like they've got to get a job interview somewhere. And
yeah.
I'll tell you what, they dig in on their college education over there on LinkedIn. I am not liked.
No, well, look, it goes to show you that it is an emotive subject. And I suppose when people put their time, effort, and money into a 4-year project to try and better themselves for their family and for themselves,
Right.
they're defending that first, I think.
For sure. Absolutely. Yeah. It's not the institution itself. It's their own choices they want to
Yeah.
validate.
Hold on a
100%.
minute. I'm after putting 4 years into this, and you're telling me that it's
That
not
I
worth the
wasted my
paper it's
time and
written
money.
on. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Didn't see you putting your 4 years in there, and all this kind of conversation can be thrown out on the table. And then there is other, I wouldn't say safety critical, but critical jobs for obvious reasons, like a heart surgeon, that you just don't want a mechanic messing around with, like.
Yeah. Yeah. No, there's definitely levels of education. Even in still that frame, that example you just gave, the
Yeah.
surgeon doesn't learn how to do the surgery in college. So I would still push back on the institution itself. The fact that he learned how to do your knee surgery in clinicals, which is more like what we're talking about, is just going and getting experience, just going and doing the thing. Now,
Yeah.
granted, there's got to be some proving ground. I'm not going to fight you on that.
Yeah.
But obviously, my contrarian views here are pretty strong.
Oh, they're coming straight at me. I can get them.
Yeah.
But again, don't want to go off topic too much, but it is actually a very fascinating topic in terms of
Curious to know,
in terms of value. So maybe people might put stuff in the comments or whatever else.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting to get people's feedback on it. Okay, so you're in the retail business, you're in the construction business, you're in the coaching business, you're in the how to connect family with your business. You're in the vending business because your children are the next superstars.
Yeah.
To be on one of these entrepreneurial shows like Shark Tank or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know if they'll have an invention or a business like that to sell, but maybe we'll see.
Yeah, but it just goes to show you, like you've turned value out of a really, if you don't mind me saying so, like simple idea, simple execution, and something that a kid could get their head around without actually putting the kid at risk, financially or operationally. But again, getting them to think of the wider view and getting them to think about money and putting things together and putting a business plan together and the logistics of how it all comes together, relationships of how it all comes together. Give me your sort of blueprint for getting involved with Gathering the Kings and how, you've put that whole business together. What was the philosophy? What is the philosophy? What's the mission?
Yeah. The philosophy of our coaching business called Gathering the Kings is to help entrepreneurs build a business that runs without them so their family never has to.
Yeah.
And the truth is that early on, I was building multiple businesses and I said that I was doing it for my family. And I was like, that was my genuine intention.
Yeah.
But when you looked at my calendar, when you looked at the flow of our life, my businesses got the best of me and my family got the crumbs. And I think that there's a belief that entrepreneurs, family-driven entrepreneurs specifically, because not everybody is family-driven. There are a lot of drivers out there. Not every entrepreneur thinks about their legacy in a way that's like tactical, like what do I do today to take care of my kids and my grandkids?
Mm-hmm.
And so for those that do, that are like me, a lot of times we find ourselves kind of caught in the machine. Entrepreneurs in general find themselves caught in the machine. But then, for the family driven ones, they're saying to their spouse, like, I'm doing this for you guys and I'm providing and I'm building us a better future, which are all true. And those things are good. There's nothing wrong with those things, but there is a way to do that and to be present with your family. It doesn't mean that you spend 8 hours a day with your family. It just means that you've got to figure out a way to win in both. I told you earlier, I love to win. And so winning in your business in a way to where it doesn't own you and you can operate a machine, and then winning in your family, whether you have been able to build a machine in your business yet or not. Winning in your family is just about intentionality. And so I help folks do that immediately, whether they're out of their business yet or not. The long-term strategy is let's build a machine that runs without you so that you can like really pour into your family. But you can be intentional with your family right away.
Okay, let's start unpacking it. How long is this going to take me? I am Mr. Lumberjack or Mr. Mechanic or Mr.
Yeah.
Plumber, let's say,
Right.
Gavin Coyle Plumbing. Talk to me. You're telling me I'm going to get financial and independent freedom for the rest of my life. I have 3 employees, maybe 5 maximum employees. I have a little bit of debt going on. I'm turning over like revenue figures of about 200 grand a year. I've got a couple of vans on the road. By the time I get to the end of the year and I look back and I say to myself, my God, is it worth it? I'm after putting a big year in. I've all this sort of stress that's going on in my life. There's some months I haven't paid myself this year because I had to pay the employees first and I had to pay the suppliers to keep things moving. Do I really need this shit?
Those are really good questions. I've asked those questions myself many times, and all of the folks that I've worked with have asked all those questions. And so we're in the right spot. Number one, not part of the actual response to what you're looking for, but if someone's listening right now and they have a $200,000 business in revenue and they have 3 to 5 employees, they have way too many staff and they need to fire at least 3 of them right now. You don't need another employee until you're at least 300K. So you / an assistant, 3 to 500K should be more than good with the way AI, the way that virtual assistants work. Like there's lots of tools to where you should be able to get to 3 to 500K with you and some tools.
I would say, if you don't mind me, sorry to cross you, Chaz.
Yeah.
I'm so happy that you said that because that is, you're the first person on this podcast has put a figure on it. I've been waiting for someone to kind of put a figure on it.
Yeah.
I think you're absolutely smashed it bang on. It's 300,000. Doesn't matter whether it's euro, dollars, sterling. You know, obviously, if it's completely crap in terms of its currency, it's a different story. But in terms of the stronger currencies, if you like, inverted commerce, that 300 grand is I've looked at this on I don't know many occasions, and I would even say probably a second employee, and I might even get as far as 3 or 5. I would even say a second employee maybe at 300,000. I think.
Yeah, I agree. The 3 employee scenario that you gave is probably someone doing, 700 to 1.2 million ish, depending upon the industry, and again, their usage of automation and AI, and virtual assistants. But let's just roll with your example, regardless of the revenue. This individual needs to go through these 4 steps, and these are the 4 steps that we teach our clients. Number 1 is they have to think different in order to get different results. You can't. We know the adage, right? You can't do what you did to get here to get there, right? You have to adjust, you have to mature, you have to grow. The way that you think bigger or differently at this level, the conversation is different. And so part of our coaching is like a peer mastermind where we try to get into a table room, round table, and there's lots of people at the table kind of sharing, problems, issues, whatever, and we're breaking them down, putting them back together. It's not just, an individual coaching at someone. We want that peer level progress and accountability. But what you have at that table is someone who's dealing with different issues. And so it's not the individual, like you just said, 200,000 is kind of in that startup mode. No. That 3 to 5 employee person is not in startup mode. They're in, maybe 2, 3, 4 years or more potentially.
Yeah.
And they're really what they're trying to do is break through. They're trying to break into the next level of mindset. They're trying to break into the next level of systems and process and people. And we're going to get into that here in the 4 steps. But that's what they're trying to do. So step 1 is they got to think different. You got to get into a room where other people share their experience, or on a podcast like this, and you hear someone like me or like Gavin talking, and you're like, oh, interesting. Okay, I had never really thought about it that way. I'll give you another example of how this works. If you go to a place in the country, or you go on a vacation, or something like where you literally put yourself around more money. There was a period of time where I lived in Miami about a year, and here in Kansas City where I live, it's called the average car, like a Honda Accord, like just a regular average car, right? It's the Midwest. There's not a whole. I mean, there's definitely money here. Don't get me wrong, but not everybody's rolling around in the high roller stuff. In Miami, it was G-Wagons, Rolls Royce, Lamborghinis, like. That was very regular. It was not like, oh my gosh, it was like, no, there's just another Rolls Royce, another Lamborghini, right? Yeah. There's so much money. My rent in Miami was almost $6,000 a month. And I have people here in Kansas City that were like, bro, you could live anywhere you want to.
Wow.
So you have to get yourself in situations where not just the way you think about money, but the way you think about business and teams and everything expands. Okay. So that's step number one. Step number two is that you've got to get out of the weeds. And so even if you've got 3 to 5 employees in that example, most likely you're still the bottleneck. You're still the hero. Everything runs through you, and a lot of people do this up until like 10 or 15 people on their team. And until they just literally fall apart like themselves. They call it burnout, but they just don't know how to systemize and delegate. Yeah. So you've got to get yourself out of the weeds, which really means putting the right people in the right seats. So we're going to take a look at those 3 to 5 people, make sure that through the predictive index, they're the right profile, sitting in the right seat. They know how to win in their role. Who else needs to be hired? Maybe someone needs to be let go and a different person needs to be brought in. We need to do some shuffling around to make sure we got right people in right seats.
Yeah.
Step number 3 is to make sure that the business is running on systems. We can't duplicate things over and over and over if it's all up here in the owner's head only. Again, that's making him or her the bottleneck. And so we need to duplicate or document SOPs. We need to create automations. We need to use tools so that things run regularly and smoothly without having to ask the guy or the gal.
And
that doesn't always have to be the owner, but typically is. And then step number 4 is creating predictable revenue. We've got to create a financial system to where, one, we know our numbers well enough to where we can create profit. We can't have predictable profit unless you have profit to begin with. So we got to be obsessed with making sure our numbers are good. We know our numbers. We know how to track our numbers, and we're predicting or producing profit. And then eventually you're creating this machine to where you can project it and make sure that it's predictable. For the family-driven entrepreneur, money's important. Margin, profit, all these numbers are important. But the reason why it's super important for the family-driven entrepreneur is because that profit is literally what's going to drive your legacy. And so we try to tie those two things together of not only are we just trying to make money for the sake of making money, but this is literally what's driving your kids, your grandkids, your community, your team, their family. All of that predictable profit makes an impact on the next 100 years that you're responsible for as the family-driven entrepreneur. And so how can we use these 4 steps to take you into, the next level for you is basically what we try to do with our clients.
Are you looking to spend less time on paperwork and more time making things happen on site? Hustro.com is the simplest construction management software out there. Streamline inspections, defect reporting, and all your project documentation all in one app. With Hustro.com, contractors are seeing 75% less time on inspections and reports, 47% faster corrective actions, and almost a third quicker decision making. Hustro.com is the simplest software to manage construction projects, period. Level up your site efficiency today with Hustro.com.
Yeah, and I hear you. And it resonates a lot with, you can see where that success can, if you tap into those 4 pillars. I suppose the reason I use the 200,000 Chaz and the 3 people is that sometimes, well, not sometimes, what I've seen is you might be on your own and then you might pull in a nice little project, but you need extra labor to come in and you need, so now all of a sudden you got this spike in your model and there's there's no foresight as regards, okay, what happens after the spike? Are you going to keep the 3 guys on? How do you keep them moving? That kind of stuff. And then by the end of the year, you weren't able to get another larger project that size. And then you've just bottomed out or just went lower than what you should be doing.
Yeah.
And realistically, and that as well as, most of the listeners here, 200,000 a year is a very good job. And that should be your own job. That is an exceptional job. All right, you're a business owner, but your revenue is 200, and then so long as you can pull as much as you can back into the net profit and have a nice wage out of that, it's a beautiful day. But when you start taking on all this debt, as in, and I'm sorry if I sound like this, but I think people should probably look at employees as debt in the system, because that's essentially what you're doing, is you're putting debt on the business by taking on an employee, unless you have the capacity to step up and go, hold on a minute, I've got a pipeline here for 3 years, and it's where you see it.
Yeah. I mean, to break it down just a little further for your audience, the employee is not the cap there. The breakdown is you want revenue generating employees. They pay for themselves.
Yeah.
They pay for everything else. The example that you gave of bringing on some guys, those are operational, client fulfillment type roles. And that's capacity, right? So we got to plan for capacity. We've got to manage capacity. Like inside of my retail shops, like, if it's a slow day, then the 3 people that we had scheduled don't work their full shifts. Like we recognize that the fulfillment for that day is less than what we planned for, and we adjust. This happens every single day in restaurants and retail shops and anything where they're planning ahead for manual labor, construction, even potentially. We had a big job, but now there's a big snowstorm, or we're landscapers and now it's winter. These are regular rhythms. For us in the retail shop, Valentine's Day is a big day. So we'll go from like a staff of, like 7 to 70, like no exaggeration, 7 to 70 for 2.5, 3, 4 days. But what I know is that I bring on those folks with expectation for that. And then that's it. And so, when you're talking about fulfillment or client, operation, you've got to manage it tightly, because it's an expense. To your point, it's liability, it's an expense. You still have to get those things done for your client, but you got to manage that tightly. Not so tight that your quality goes down or that the client experience fails. Like you want to take good care of the things that you said you were going to do for your clients. But you have to keep a close eye on the management of that. The other employees, marketing, sales, outreach, events, like some of those things, kind of depending upon the business, are going to bring in new clients, and so they're going to pay for themselves. You're going to have maybe a salary and commission, or maybe it's just straight commission or project based, whatever the scenario is. But it gives capacity for the next level of growth. It's not always just the liability.
Talk to me about. As you're talking there, Chaz, I was thinking, you could have the best coffee shop and the best staff and the best food, but because you're in a poor location, and I mean in terms of population, you're just not going to cut it. And you see so many really good boutique, businesses just go out of business because it's not that they're not on the right street. It's that it's just the demographic doesn't support the business.
Yeah. There's multiple layers there. It's just general sheer mass population, like you're talking about. Could be the actual corner that they're on, and then it could be the product. And each one of those, play into an example. With my construction business, like there's got to be enough homeowners that have a high enough income to afford a remodel, and so you have to take the market into assessment around, like, is there enough even people here that could potentially buy my service, let alone will buy my service? And then potentially what you're located, construction, we can travel around. So it's not like a specific location matters as much as like a retail shop. But then the product itself, the actual remodel, how well you do, the processes that you have around asking for referrals or whatever, like, if you suck, then they're not going to refer. So it is a both and. In that example specifically that you gave, yes, you've got to first determine whether the market is even big enough to support.
You may very well need to go out of town to bring your business out of town in order for you to have a sustainable model. And then that brings its own complications, because not every employee might want to travel out of town with you. They want to stay within the locality. So then you have to employ out of town employees in order to sustain that business. Right.
Yeah. I had a client years ago, still a good friend of mine now, but he owned a garage door business, or owns a garage door business in a pretty small town, mountain town. And, kind of against all the odds, he had grown a 7-figure business, which kind of was a little abnormal in such a small town. But he was good. He's good at marketing. He's good at branding. He's a good person. So people wanted to work for him, did a good job for his clients. He maxed out the area, right? It's just kind of like one of those, wow, like it was probably not supposed to get this big, but it did, but it's definitely not going to get any bigger. And so because of that market cap, he moved a couple hours down the road to a larger opportunity, larger market. And with all the same skills, he's now building a much larger business because there's just more people to service. So it's just another great example of what you're saying there. Sometimes he had a couple employees come with him, had a few that said that doesn't work for me. And that's okay. Like as a business owner, you've got to realize that it's just going to be you standing at the end.
Yeah.
You and your spouse, if you got a business partner, but the employees are going to come and go, customers are going to come and go. It doesn't mean that you don't take good care of them when you have them.
Yeah.
I think it's actually our responsibility to take, of course, excellent care of our clients, but for sure our employees, like we should leave them better when they leave than when they started with us.
Mm-hmm.
But they will come and go. At the end of the day, it will just be you or you and your spouse or you and your business partner. And that's okay. That's just the name. That's the name of the game,
I think it's an interesting topic, Chaz, that we don't talk about enough. I think business owners can be wed to their own location, and it can probably, they kind of fall on their own sword in that way, and kind of like, oh, I can't get business, the marketing doesn't work, and when you just peel it back, you just go like, look, within 40 minutes of your location, you don't have the capacity to bring this to the next level. You have too much competition. There's not enough big a market there. You need to move in order to, whether that's move your target or whether it's move your family. But you need to definitely think about moving. And I think I actually have a very good sense that a lot of construction owners just dig their heels in and go, no, there must be something else. It's not working. It must be my marketing. It must be, whatever. They don't think about moving.
And all those things need to be considered in that scenario. But to your point, I think that oftentimes a bigger market is just a really easy solution. Because there's more people to market to, the marketing doesn't actually have to be better. You can have poor marketing that just reaches more people. I'm not saying that that's necessarily the solution, but it that is a possibility.
But you could take a strategy and say, right, for the next 2 to 3 years, I'm going to smash this, and have a chat with herself and the kids and whatever else, or himself or whatever, and say, look, let's put a shoulder to the wheel here. I'm going to spend 3 to 5 years now, building this up, and then put in the right team in, as probably back to your model again, in terms of educating people to put in those layers, so you can come back to your small rural area and still enjoy the fruits of, big volume. So talk to me about the whole engagement with yourself. Is that a monthly subscription, or do people just pay on a fixed sort of, what's the story here? How do you price that model?
We offer coaching in a peer group, like I mentioned, and that's a monthly membership. And we also offer one-on-one coaching, high level, pretty like action driven. These are our one-on-one clients, or folks that they want to break through to the next level and kind of tired of their situation, and they want specifics. They don't want just a group talking about it. And the group is powerful. Don't get me wrong. There's benefit there. They come to those as well, but they want that like one-on-one accountability, that drive, that push with someone going, okay, here's the next couple of steps. Here's what you should be thinking about over the next 3 to 6 months. Here's what we're doing this week, and kind of having that both and option. So we do that. We do the family mastermind event that we do. We haven't talked about it yet, but it's a big family event that we do in the summertime. Super fun. It's a vacation basically for entrepreneur families. We do the entrepreneur spouse, the kids. We do sessions for the adults and for the kids, not only around business, but around parenting and marriage, legacy. We teach the kids how to launch their first business, make money, stuff like that. So that's kind of a little bit of a standalone thing that we do in the summer times. You don't have to be a member to come to that, but a lot of our members do.
I think that's just brilliant. You're the first person, definitely on this podcast, that's come up with that initiative. I'm not sure if anyone else does it. I get the whole, you've gone to a conference and you might bring your partner with you, and maybe the kids, and make a whole weekend of it. But like, to actually bring everybody together in one social environment and make it fun, but also make it about business and make it about the economics of your family. That's very powerful. Now, whether I could get my kids to sit at a table and stay there long enough to listen to what's being discussed, is another question. But again, I'm sure you've boxed that off in terms of keeping the attention of the certain age groups that will just go, no, I don't like that.
Yeah, it's pretty fun, but also cute, because we'll have a round table, we call it, all the way down to the 2, 3, 4, 5-year-olds. My son was in that one last year at 5 years old, and really it's about helping them understand basic concepts, and their consciousness isn't even really there. It's really training their subconscious around that money's okay, and here's how we invest, and here's how we save, and here's how we think about money, and it's cute that you can do that with little kids. And then of course the older kids, the juniors as we call them, and then the teens, they can understand concepts. I mean, like I already told you, my 9 and 12-year-old daughters, will make more money this year than most college graduates because of a business. And so they can understand these concepts. Now, granted, I've helped them, but I've created in a learning environment for multiple years now where they've learned about how to communicate and, even the basics of shaking hands and eye contact and introducing themselves, all the way over to, how to track numbers and how to write down a marketing plan. And what does that mean? Like, who am I going to talk to? Who are the specific people that want or need my product? What problems am I solving? And then how do I go talk to them? The tactics of a phone call or a message or a knocking on the door or going to an office and introducing myself and offering my candy bars or whatever it is, So all these, like, it's marketing, sales, operations, finance, right? It's the same thing that we teach our entrepreneurs how to get free. If I can teach my 8, 9, 12, 15-year-old this, I mean, oh my goodness. Can you imagine where we would have been if we had been in those sessions,
Hello, gaffers. Hope you're enjoying the podcast. We love every one of the guests that we have, but in order to bring on more great guests, we'd love to build the channel with you. So hit the subscribe, hit the like button, and let's create a really great community where we bring in better and better guests for you to deliver great content and great pieces of information that you can take back into your business. Now, back to the podcast. Thank you. I did it with one of my eldest daughter. We during COVID, she has a creative mind, so we encouraged her. She came up with the idea herself. She wanted to write a book, so we encouraged that. And through my own sort of contacts in the freelance world, I then used that as a medium to bring in the right people to work on, the development of the book and all that kind of stuff. But it was her words, at the end of the day, and it was her imagination. And it was a brilliant experience because, at the end of the day, the book was fantastic. It got published and whatever else. And I'd said to her, now we can put this on Amazon because, it's like my own book is like just handy to go through Amazon and let all the sales, and then you can have the account, and it's just, you don't have to go promoting it that much or whatever else. And she was like, no, Daddy, we're not putting it on Amazon. And I went, why is that? She says, because Amazon have a certain size and have a certain amount of pages that they allow, and that doesn't fit into my book. So they're not getting my book.
You're raising a contrarian of your own.
I was like, shit. But it's amazing what they pick up. Like, awesome. Because you've opened that sort of part of the brain or whatever else, and now something that became probably not very achievable or not very, not something that you would think that, oh, well, I can't do that, or I can, you can do that. I'm not saying, like, from a young kid, I think that's one of the biggest lessons I took out of it was, yes, you can. Yes, you can.
Yeah. And that's not just for kids, Gavin, that's for regular everyday entrepreneurs. If I can get someone to hold the concept of, if you can do it, I can do it. They can hear a story like mine or like yours.
Yeah.
I'm no different. I grew up in a family that was probably worse off than many of your listeners. Mm-hmm. And so how is it that I can do it if they can't? Well, the truth is that they can. Mm-hmm. That transfer of courage, like you're talking about, isn't just for kids, although you're 100% right. The kids grab onto that. If I can infuse into them, like, hey, just try it. We teach our kids failing is the first attempt in learning, and that's fail. And the more I can do that, the more I can adjust and try again. And, in every other thing that they do in school or in sports, if they don't do it right, they're told to just give it another shot. Yeah. But the second that we want to try to sell candy bars or lemonade or start my first business, I'll start my coaching business that teaches other kids how to kick the soccer ball or whatever. It's like, whoa, wait, that's really risky, and be careful because you're going to fail. And all the things that I heard at even 24, starting my first business, and like, well, you're going to leave all, Wait a second.
You're putting it all at risk. You're putting it all at risk. You're putting your family at risk. You're putting yourself at risk. And it's, I definitely think there's also a family culture that needs to be taken into consideration. I don't know if you've come across this with your clients, where they have to break the mold. No, you're doing this because there's an expectation on you because your mother and father are doing the same thing and their mother and father are on the same thing. It's kind of like, in order for you to go to the place that you want to go to, you're going to have to break that culture.
Yeah, you as an entrepreneur listening right now may or may not have even core values for your business. Highly recommend that. But the next level up is core values for your family. And understanding what those are is really what legacy truly is. I can hand millions of dollars. I pass away today. There's millions of dollars that's going to transfer. And that's not going to statistically make it to my grandkids. It'll all be gone. At least the last little bits of it will be used by my grandkids. So how do I break that? Well, that's what you're talking about. You're talking about family culture. You're talking about values. You're talking about think. And I don't know how I can transfer think without being intentional, spending time, but being intentional with my kids. And my spouse doing the same thing. My wife is intentional about certain things. I'm intentional about certain things. I'm the entrepreneur in the family. And so, several years ago when we were, deciding to take them out of school, they were in a private Christian school, which was great. There was a lot of great people there. There was nothing like wrong with the scenario. Definitely different than if it would have been, like a public school scenario. But either way, do I want them around a third grade teacher or do I want them around me? And that might sound conceited. It might sound like I think highly of myself. Well, yeah, I do. And it doesn't mean that I think I'm better than the third grade teacher at all. I think that I'm the same person that had the same opportunities as everybody else. But if I'm trying to build an entrepreneur, if I'm trying to build the culture that we're talking about, the values that we've specifically set as a family, then sending them here to learn from someone else for 9 hours a day doesn't really align with that goal or that value,
Yeah. Wow. I think there's about 4 podcasts in this.
We keep talking for days, right?
Yeah. I'm going to let me get to the curveball questions because I'm just I like it. No, honestly, we'll have to get you back on the show again because there's a lot to unpack here. Not knowing what you know now. Sorry, Chaz. What would you do differently next time around? And that's in life.
Well, the basis of that question, it might be rooted in regret. So I want to make sure your listener isn't listening for regrets, that they're listening for adjustments, because reflecting and making adjustments is part of the game. And so as I've grown, I've realized that, communication, courage, eye contact, being able to define what I want and go after it. Some of the basic success principles are just really that important. I've got a book that I recommend that I think you're going to ask here in a second. So I'll hang on to that. But basic success principles, quote unquote, are way underrated. Most people read through certain books and it's like, oh yeah, I read that. And I'm like, yeah, but do you know what chapter 4 says? Do you know what chapter 11 is? Because there's some crazy stuff in chapter 11. And they're like, well, what do you mean? Like, you just read it to check the box. I read it and I studied it because I've read it over 40 times or whatever the scenario is. And I'm not saying there's just one book, but there's, when you read success principles, are you reading persistence as like, oh yeah, I got to persist? It's like, no. Whoa. What does it mean to actually believe or actually to have persistence or to actually, have a high level of communication and be able to speak clearly and articulate some of these basic things,
Yeah. I have a friend in business who he cuts out the chapters of the book with a Stanley knife or with a sharp knife. So he just keeps on taking the chapters out of the book. Always goes hardback or soft copy, rips it out. And then he has a little shelf in his toilet when he's sitting down on the toilet.
Yeah. Love it.
Yeah. Because exactly to your point, sometimes it takes a while to sort of sink in exactly 100%. The principles of what some of these books are saying. And you kind of sometimes you feel you come to the end of the book and I read that book, but to your point, there's some deep stuff in there if you actually just digest it and sort of and maybe it is sitting down on the toilet sort of.
Yeah. In whatever circumstance it is for you, what we're talking about is mastery, right? So to answer your question more directly, what I would do maybe differently is I would just focus on self-mastery earlier. I was already pretty focused on personal development, but I would just focus on, rather than learning or gaining knowledge or kind of checking the box like we've discussed, I would focus on mastering. I'd master my mind. I'd master my behaviors. I'd master my, self-control, all these things that, could be fruits of the spirit / personal development. It's that's the game.
That's the game. Talk to me about a point of interest that maybe the listeners wouldn't resonate with you or wouldn't think, oh my God, I didn't see that with Chaz. Maybe it's a hobby or maybe it's something of an interest about you that not many people would know.
That's interesting. Probably I would say that I don't have hobbies. That might be, maybe it's surprising, maybe it's not. I do elk hunt. I hunt elk every year, usually every year in the fall, and that's like pretty high intensity. Carry a bow, carry a 40-pound pack, wander in the wilderness for 10, 12, 14 days, and it's super hard. Incredibly difficult, actually, physically, mentally. I think that's why I like it. But outside of that, my hobbies, my interests are winning in my family, with my kids, with my spouse, in my businesses. And, I had this conversation with my wife, I don't know, several years ago, but a lot of guys come home from work or from their job, whatever, and kind of like, check out, they grab their beverage of choice and flip open the TV and pop open the game or whatever it is. And that doesn't bring me any satisfaction or interest at all. I spend time with the kids and put them down, and then I'm as anxious to go right back to work. Not because I'm a workaholic and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'm overworked, and if nobody does it, no. I genuinely want to be creative and build and create things. And sometimes the evenings look like my wife and I hanging out. Sometimes it looks like me building a new marketing campaign or whatever, because that's what I want to do. That's probably the biggest difference between me and a lot of guys that I know.
Okay. Well, then I was going to ask you, actually get to the book. Give me the name of the book and why that is your favorite. Well, obviously you've shared that already.
Yeah. Think and Grow Rich is the name. Napoleon Hill's the author, written over 100 years ago. Most success principle books will stem from that original text. There's more original text of Napoleon Hill's that even Think and Grow Rich comes from, but just focus on Think and Grow Rich. There's success principles in there. There's reasons for failures. I typically read it every single year, multiple times each year.
Wow.
So if you had only one book to pick from forever and ever and ever, you could read that book every single year and absolutely grow every single year.
Wow. Chaz, I really enjoyed today's chat with you. It was really insightful, and I'm sorry there was, when I think about it, like there was so much depth in each topic. You could spend 40 minutes on each topic in that, but I can see there isn't a quick fix to what you do. It's a journey. Is what I'm getting from the conversation. So if somebody does come to you, they probably think, oh well, look, Chaz will package me up in a couple of months and I'm good to go. But I can see why you've integrated that with the family, because everybody needs to be on the same train.
Yeah, our clients, typically within a couple of months have major results, but then they realize the potential. So it's like, oh my gosh, X, Y, and Z has happened. I'm thinking of one of our clients who came to me basically overwhelmed, very similar scenario that we described earlier, really wanting things to create freedom for him and his family. And he's only worked with me since, 90 days ish. And he just took a kind of an unexpected trip with his family, and the business operated for almost 10 days, no issues, people working and doing the normal thing. He had created some process and got rid of some people, and he was just like, dude, it's working. And I'm like, I know, isn't that amazing? That's not the end result. That's like, oh my gosh, I can see what life can be like as I continue down the journey that you're talking about.
Yeah, and where can we go with this?
Where can we go with this? Exactly.
That's very powerful.
How good can it get?
Yeah. Chaz, in terms of how good can it get, how does people get in touch with you to get to how good does it get?
Yeah. They can go to gatheringthekings.com. There's an application there, or just more information. If they're not sold on me yet, that's completely fine. Go take a look at there. There's some information, some videos, stuff about our family mastermind is there. They can take a look at me online, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube. There's tons of content. They can browse me for a while and then make a decision when it's time. We really only want to work with folks that are ready to take action anyway. So if you got to browse around for a little while longer, that's okay too. Yeah,
I'm on the website here, gatheringkings.com.
Yeah, gatheringthekings.com.
gatheringthekings.com.
Yep.
Actually, pretty cool name. My experience has been nothing but inspiring and incredibly healthy. Matt from Cooler Garage Doors. Being around these brilliant mastermind guys is the most exciting thing for me. Jeff, details, tile and remodeling. The great thing about GTK is that we take a 360-degree view of life and deep dive into each area. Landon. So, look,
pretty cool.
It's good to see that there's an authentic approach towards helping people in the construction, because there is some people out there that were purely focused on their own self-serving agenda, and it looks like you're more on the inclusive. Well, it is. It's very apparent that you are more inclusive in terms of you want people genuinely to be the best version of themselves and to help their families and themselves succeed in an area and in an industry that is pretty high in terms of stress and also risk. And I commend you for what you're doing, and make sure you keep on smashing it out. And we'll put all your details in the show notes. Chaz, thanks very much for joining us on I'm The Gaffer.
No, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. And if you're still listening and you've gotten some value here, give Gavin a 5-star review. It means a lot to him.
Cheers, guys.